right, what is going on, guys? It is time for another episode of the Chasing Waypoints podcast. And this time around, we've got some, I don't know, what are we going to do? Another in the Bivouac, but a little more technical. Going to be talking rally bikes, rally experiences, and all sorts of cool stuff with none other than Mr. Scott Spears. Scott Spears is one of the, or the lead guy for Freedom Rally Racing as far as the technical side it goes. If you follow him on Instagram, you're seeing his posts of him working on the bikes and setting these things up. Robert Mann, the whole group at Freedom Rally Racing, all of those guys, really, really cool bunch. Scott Spears, though, stands out. He's got all the mechanical knowledge and keeps these bikes going 100% of the time. So absolutely stoked to have him on the show for today's episode. So we'll be getting started in just a moment. But yeah, all right. We got all of our Dakar entrants done. I hope you guys had a chance to listen to that episode. And then we have got Kota Rally 2 weeks from today getting started. So entries for that closed up on the 1st of August, but we're almost there. Almost there. September 10th is day one of the Kota Rally, so hopefully you guys will be tuning in. I'll hope to get some reports from the guys out there and see how everything is going. But absolutely excited to get this rally season underway. All right, well, that being said, it is 10 a.m. on the dot from when I am recording this. Let's get this over to Scott Spears and see if we can get him on the line here in just a second. So what's been going on? Everybody out riding their bikes? Doing some rally stuff? What are we doing? We need to know. Also, might as well get that party started. So I'm going to be doing some stuff, trying to figure out where we're best to meet. I want to do some kind of one-on-one stuff with it. Get you guys a way to get in contact with me directly, and so we can all chat about growing the sport of rally here in the U.S. So definitely looking forward to that. All right, let's turn the party down here while we wait for him to jump on the call. Get this turned up here. Nice. Yeah, not gonna lie, still excited, man. 2 hours and 45 minutes of that episode talking to all the guys from Dakar. So I am excited that we were able to get that done. And all the other episodes in between here. Let's see if you guys heard already. We talked to Willem Abnett, talking about rally out in South Africa this past week. Before that, we talked to Patrick Reyes of the Coast to Coast Rally, talking about that. So absolutely excited. I really did. I did look up all that information on the Coast to Coast Rally, and I'm excited about it. I love that it ends in Puerto Escondido. I've never been to that region, so I'm excited to get out and explore a little bit. So Project 501 getting wrapped up finally. Finally got all of the parts and everything that I need for it. So looking forward to get that done. Then the 790 Adventure going under the knife. Going to do some final detail work, make sure everything is dialed in, and then we're going to go off to doing some suspension testing. So going to start working a little bit more on that side of things and just getting the bike really, really comfortable for me to ride. I want to get a final weight on it. Some people have been asking about, hey, what does this thing weigh? What does it compare like to a 790 original or 890? The original bike as far as the widths go and things like that. So definitely going to be looking at getting that figured out, dialed in, get the ergonomics right. I had gone, interesting enough, I had gone to a hydraulic clutch setup, right? So Magura makes a hydraulic clutch setup for that bike, and I was able to get that on there, but it just didn't quite feel the way that I wanted it to. It accomplished what I wanted, that I can run an aftermarket lever, but I don't know that that's the ultimate answer as far as performance goes. So I'll probably be switching back to a clutch cable instead of the hydraulic setup on the 790. But anyway, with that being said, looks like we've got Scott on the line. Let's see. Scott, you there?
Hey, I'm here. How about you?
I am. It is. It's Sunday.
It is Sunday. It's the special project for it's the honeydew list Sunday.
Oh. Well, the bright side is you get through those quick enough, there might still be time to play.
Yeah. Maybe someday. Right now it just seems like between everything that's going on, it's wide open. But it's definitely like I like to work under pressure.
There we go. Well, yeah. Hey, I've seen that you. Speaking of pressure, a few different bikes that you're maintaining for the Kansas City guys and Freedom Rally.
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah. No.
Tell me about. I mean, that's how I met you. Like, I started seeing the posts from Robert, and then I saw what you were doing, and it took me a minute to connect the dots that you guys are on the same team.
Correct. Yeah, it was funny. So Freedom Rally Racing was, a development. When I was working at a dealership, Freedom Cycles in Grandview, Missouri, and Mike Stanfield was the owner of Freedom Cycles, and between Luis Belaustegui and Mike Stanfield, they decided they wanted to do the Dakar one day, and I was actually working for Letco, which is a competing KTM dealership at the time. And Mike reached out to me and he goes, "Hey, do you want to be my mechanic for the Dakar?" And I said, without question, absolutely. Because I had no idea that ever in my lifetime I would be able to do something like that. Well, at the time, he says, "Well, we got Luis too with the 150." And I said, "Okay." So I had two bikes, never been to the Dakar, never knew what I was going to do. And next thing you know, this collaboration between Letco Cycles and Freedom Cycles and, was born. And then, in the year after the first Dakar we went, Freedom Rally Racing would be born. And then ultimately it would be tucked away, kind of, in storage, so to speak. And then Robert Mann would approach me and we would work together to partner up and bring it back.
Nice. And so how long was it on the back burner for?
So, unfortunately, in 2014, Mike Stanfield would pass away in a scuba diving accident. No. And that kind of left the Freedom Rally Racing team up in limbo. And I was told by the family that I could use the truck one more time, but everything else was being liquidated. So they started selling the bikes, any equipment, but anything that was associated with the truck was still intact. Mm-hmm. And so in 2015, I would take Freedom Rally Racing by myself, and I would support David Reeve, who was from Zambia, Africa. Mm-hmm. And this would be his third attempt at the Dakar. One with me in 2014, and then one with another race team. And he would end up finishing the race in 2015 with my support. Essentially, I had, an additional mechanic with me, Vincent Crosby, and then I had Jillian Dykes with me, and she kind of acted as my admin. So she was handling all the paperwork. She was doing riders' meetings and briefings while Vincent and I were doing the team. After that, the family said, that's over. They took the truck and they parked it in a barn, and it sat there for 6 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So then this last year in October, actually, Robert and Luke Valentin and I got together and decided let's do this. So for the last 6 months, it's been between Robert and myself and just a whole group of wonderful people. We've been trying to build this team up to be able to provide a professional level support to anybody who was interested in doing Dakar or even rally racing in general, just getting rally racing and rally raid exposed to the American public.
Nice. Yeah, and that was something like, we talked about in depth with Robert, getting people into it and supporting it and doing that. Where are you based out of, and what's the rally scene like there?
So interestingly enough, I live in Kansas City. So we live actually about an hour south of Kansas City in a little town called Osawatomie. Mm-hmm. Robert lives about a half an hour north of me in Olathe or Overland Park area. And then he has the Moto Farm, which is 25 minutes south of me. So we have, and then Letco is obviously up here too. But we live in the Midwest. There is no rally scene. Essentially, everything is 90 and 180. So it's there's left and rights, and you go straight for long distances. But with that said, we have the Flint Hills out here. So Luke started putting together some rally books, some road books, and just trying to teach people the basics. And so that's how we got more people involved here. And then we got some kids who were involved. Kevin and oh gosh, my mind's going blank. But we had a bunch of guys, interested from Kansas. And then, so between Luke and Robert, the Kansas rally team developed, and then they needed somebody to support the rally team. Well, how are we going to do this? And that's where Freedom Rally stepped in. And, ultimately, we can provide that next level of service.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, first of all, it's a super impressive rig. I got to see it finally in person unfolded at San Quintin when you guys were here for that training. And so is that how it was?
Well, yeah, so initially that truck was designed by Mike Stanfield with input from myself by a company called Alumaline up in Iowa. And after our first Dakar in 2011, so in 2011, we rented space from the Polaris Argentinian ATV team. And essentially all they had were 2 trucks. They were both crew cab Dodge Ram 2500s. They weren't dualies, and they basically had a black box, like just a pickup bed shell type box on the back, and then they had a rack on top. And, I had to support 2 bikes out of this truck while they're supporting 2 ATVs out of this truck. And it was chaotic. Yeah. It was, the pictures, I was reminiscing, I was going back through pictures, and it looked so unprofessional and but yet we managed. And at that point, Mike came back and said, we got to do something different.
Yeah. And then built that beast of a truck.
And then we built that beast. So we decided, well, we wanted it 4-wheel drive. We wanted it, basically a light, fast assistance vehicle. And looking at what they had and looking what everybody else had down there at the Dakar, I mean, and, everybody's running Unimogs and, the big man, assistance vehicles and stuff. And for us, that just wasn't practical, especially when we were going back and forth between the States and the hosting country. We had to figure out a way to get the container, get the truck and all the equipment, bikes, tires, everything. We had to get it there in one piece. And so when we designed the truck, we designed it to fit inside a high cube container. So essentially, there's a rack that goes on top. You pull the rack off, you pull the 2 outside wheels off, and you pull the outside fenders off, and you can back it into a high cube container with about 3 inches on each side and about 6 inches on the top. Well, that enabled us to, put all the bikes in, put all of the tires. I mean, because at that time, at one point, I had 5 bikes. We had 2 tire changes per bike at 14 days. You can imagine how many tires we had for each bike.
Yeah.
So, there was a lot of logistics that went along with it. And, but ultimately what our concern was is we one year sent our motorhome down there and had all of our riders gear in it. And that motorhome got into the port and it was broken into. No. They climbed in through the top vent inside the port, and they climbed in and they robbed it blind. Everything was removed. Everything was gone. Anything that wasn't nailed down in that motorhome, we ultimately ended up, getting rid of the motorhome. I'm not sure if we got rid of it. It was, that's a lot of money to lose, so that's why ultimately we built it to go into a container. So it would go to France. We would pick it up in France. I would collect it. I'd put it together, and I'd drive it over to the ASO, and then put it onto the truck.
Dang, man, that's crazy. I mean, that sucks because you show up, and I mean, yeah, just the gear part of it. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, you go to the Dakar. That means whatever's in that gear bag is like the best set of gloves that you did all sorts of testing on, the pants, the helmets, just the things that are like, this is going to help me get through this long, grueling event. This is my gear, my comfort. And then you show up and it's not there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it turns into piecing it together with whatever you can find locally.
Yes. Yeah. And that was just it. We were shopping, at every single motorcycle dealership down there. And mind you, dealerships in other parts of the country are different. The United States, we stock a lot of inventory. A lot of times that's not the case in some of these other countries. So, you have to order stuff. So it was definitely call who you know and make stuff happen. And, it wasn't that money was no object, but we certainly weren't going to let anything interfere with our ability to start the Dakar.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's crazy. And I mean, and that's good. I mean, I know there's a lot of manufacturers out there that are usually willing to step up to the plate. And like, I mean, once you get out of the U.S., I know this because you go like 2X, single X, or large or whatever. Every country's version of a large is different.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
So
the struggle for me is real with regards to KTM and clothing. So, for example, being a KTM employee, working for a corporate, it's everything I own is 2 to 3 sizes larger than what I would normally wear just to make it fit.
Yeah. So. That was funny. I always asked that to some of the reps that would come in when I worked at the motorcycle shop at San Diego BMW. I was like, okay, so is this extra large in US or European? Because there's a difference.
You understand? Yeah, no, it's insane.
Yeah. Yeah. One is sausage casing and the other one is like, okay, this fits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, the truck ultimately was designed, with the purpose of supporting riders out of the left side of the truck, and then all mechanical work would fall on the right side of the truck. Oh. And we chose the right side because on some of the liaisons, you had to pull off on the side of the highway to be able to take care of your rider. And certainly if we were working on the left side, then we're opened up into the highway. Mm-hmm. So we opened up everything on the right side so we could work on say changing a piston in Luis's bike after a long stage of sand. I mean, it's just all kinds of little things.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, and that's the detail work, making sure, well, first of all, I mean, it's in the name of safety, but it's thinking about those things before you even head down, because I don't think that's an on the fly decision. Oh, hey, let's just switch everything over to this side.
There is so much thought and detail that goes into a race like this, and that's not just on the rider side, but on the technical side, because you got to think about all the possibilities. You want to give your rider the best opportunity to be able to finish the race, and you have to have that equipment on the truck, and you have to be in a position to be ready to do so. So those bigger Unimogs, like the big KTM support trucks, those things are great, getting to the bivouac, and they've got everything that you possibly could, imagine inside of them. But if you needed to assist somebody on the side of the road, that truck was committed to all the riders, not just one rider. So that's why we had to make a truck small enough and, compact. It had air, it has welders, it has water. We can pressure wash. We can basically rebuild an engine, a bike complete out of that truck. And that was my goal, is because the truck is an extension of my hands. Mm-hmm. It's another tool to me. So having something that was, capable and was highly important to us.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And I mean, and there's nothing worse than getting somewhere and, not having the right tool, having to improvise, or flat out just not having anything to be able to improvise with, which is, right. Yeah, would be the worst case scenario. So you mentioned something. What do you work for KTM Corporate? What do you do for them?
So I'm a field support or a field service rep, kind of like a field engineer. I run around the country helping dealers, mechanics, or fixing things that they can't. So, I'll fly in and customer may have had his motorcycle at a dealership for, weeks or months or whatever, whether it's a back ordered part or it's just a diagnostic situation they can't figure out. And I'll be called in to go take care of it and find the root cause of the problem and address it. And then make sure everybody is up to speed as far as technically trained, or, whether it's a customer, maybe I need to educate them. So I do a little bit of teaching. I do a lot of wrenching. I do a lot of, a lot of fires, I guess. Putting it, I don't know how to describe it.
Yes. Okay. So you're special ops for KTM.
I'm special.
Yeah. I I had my experience with that when I was at BMW, because they had a similar thing. And yeah, it's when we had somebody coming in from, the mothership, it was a big deal. And it was a bike that was a problem child. And it's nothing to reflect on the brand. It's just every brand is going to have that one problem child situation at some point. And it's what you guys do that helps, get it. And usually it ends up being something dumb. I mean,
yeah. It's just it. Motorcycles have become highly technologically advanced, and a lot of people don't understand that. Albeit mechanically, they work. The electronics, the Bluetooth features, the extra, suspension. God, what am I saying? Adjustable suspension, electronic suspension.
Mm-hmm.
Computer controlled stuff, CAN buses. A lot of the problems we see out in the field now aren't related to mechanical, but more related to technology, to computers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found myself having to learn how to be an IT technician as well as, a mechanical technician.
Yeah.
So, and it's, so with that said, you look at skills. There's not a lot of skill out there anymore. Skill is kind of fading. People aren't interested in working on stuff. If they are, they're working on stuff as a hobby, not as a job, so they're not going to school for it. Mm-hmm. So, it's a trade that, I guess what I'm trying to say is just every dealership is looking for, skilled labor. And man, we got to figure out how to get that skilled labor back into the dealerships.
Mm-hmm.
Not to eliminate my position, but to give the customer a better, end game, a better use of their product, without having to spend a lot of time on the dealership working on it. But yeah, you're right. Not KTM, not Husky specific. Every manufacturer has their problems, and they all have people like me.
Yeah. And, and it's very interesting. First of all, there's the guys, there's the end users, much like me, that cannot leave a motorcycle alone. If you saw my 790, you would laugh at all the different things that are on it because I, quote unquote, made it better for me. But ultimately, I do know that because I did A, B, and C, that does have an effect on the bike, the way it handles. And then, I'm not running a stock headlight. And so I know about CAN bus systems, which for those playing the home game, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's a communication line inside the motorcycle that basically interconnects everything. And based on those signals, if that signal gets tweaked and the motorcycle's not expecting it, here comes the error code, or the light doesn't turn on, or the bike doesn't turn on.
Essentially, it's a pair of wires that are wound a certain way that reside in the wiring harness that communicate all of the ECUs. Mm-hmm. So like on the 1290 Super Adventure, you've got, a headlight ECU. You have 9 ECUs on that bike. All 9 of those ECUs are communicating through those 2 wires. So if you have one ECU that says, hey, I don't want to talk to anybody, then you end up having a failure on the dash, and the customer, experiences a problem, so to speak, and that problem. But anyway, yes. So that's the CAN bus.
Yeah. So for those of you that are listening to the show and thinking about modifying your electrical system, beware, especially on the newer bikes.
No, that's just it. That's a great point. If there's any advice I can give to anybody, make sure that you're working with 12 volts. A lot of the sensors on these motorcycles operate off of 5 volts. Mm-hmm. So if you're sitting there looking for a 12 volt source for an accessory, and you're going to tap into the harness, you're likely going to create some problems that are going to cost you a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just, if you have any questions with regard to electricity or electrical items on a motorcycle, please contact your dealer and just get the right and wrong way to do something.
Yeah.
So.
Or don't. This will be this is my customer service supporting the dealership statement. Or if not, be ready to pay for it.
Exactly.
It's the truth, and working in a dealership on the service advisor side of it for so long, it was like, okay, I'm going to be as nice as possible to you, but I need you to understand that at some point with what this bike has going on, the bill is going to be your bill, not the dealership not the dealerships or the manufacturers. Because I can see that you have like power commanders. when working at BMW, you know, especially on the double R's, everybody on the street bikes was like, I'm going to put a power commander because I'm going to get this, or I don't know anybody that can ride a road in San Diego that will pin it, leave that corner and say, I wish it had a little more.
Right.
So, but yet diagnosing power commander issues was like 2-3 times a month. A misfire, this, that, and it always ended up being, you know, okay, well, it's 50-50, right? We'll unplug everything and we're going to plug it in. And if the bike works perfect, then that's on you. If the bike doesn't work perfect, we'll chase it down, and then it's up to you if you want to plug it back in.
Yeah, motorcycles are so good nowadays. I mean, aside from just the kind of creature features, the comfort, you know, just little things, you know, to kind of aid the rider in more, in a better way. The bikes, technology-wise and speed-wise and horsepower-wise, don't need to be modified. I mean, you look at our 1290, our Super Duke engine, and that's in both the Adventure and the Super Duke, and that's putting out 160 horsepower. I can't ride a bike to 160 horsepower, let alone an off-road motorcycle with 160 horsepower. So modifying them to go faster, you know, usually just ends up costing, you know, it usually affects reliability. Mm-hmm. And one of my pet peeves is when I build a bike, I want it to be reliable. So I'm going to look at every aspect of where a wire, say a harness or something, is going to lay in relationship to anything that articulates around it. So I don't want anything bumping into it. I don't want anything pulling it and stretching on it. And, you know, so, yeah, I also don't want it to look like a rat's nest, you know, because trying to troubleshoot something like that is impossible. There's you might as well cut it all out and start over. Yeah. So when I built something, you know, obviously it's very, methodical, I guess, for me. Unfortunately, in the dealership world, that's not realistic because time for the dealership is money lost. You know, so for me, I'll spend hours looking at a bike going, you know, I don't like the way that wire's going. Let's put it on the other side of the frame. You know, just little details. I'm a little crazy like that, I guess.
Yeah. But I mean, so let's talk about that. So building bikes, you know, I see that you're building all the bikes for the Freedom team, you know, maintaining them, keeping them up, including I saw Robert's RFR. And like, what's the approach on that bike or any of them really for you to build them? I mean, I'm assuming there's still a stock bike, but just everything's kind of been detailed.
Yeah, so it is a stock bike, stock motor. You know, motors, like I said, we don't need to lean on the motor at all. We might put a muffler on it just to give us a little bit more torque, maybe on the bottom, maybe give us a little nicer sound. But, you know, so motors are stock. The bike, essentially, I go through. I touch every single nut and bolt on that bike. I Loctite them. I torque them to spec. You know, on a production-based bike, this is just reality, is there's not a lot of grease in the steering head bearings, not a lot of grease in the swing arm. They light, you know, it's very light coating. So I'll go back through all those aspects and you know, essentially race prep it, you know, and that's making sure everything is lubricated, torqued, Loctited, everything that needs to be done. And then at that point, you know, we start to decide how we're going to set the bike up. Are we going to set it up for, you know, say a 100-pound rider? Are we going to set it up for a 200-pound rider? You know, then we're looking at suspension. We're looking at springs. A lot of times we'll leave the bike stock and then just give it to the customer to ride to get a base idea. And then we'll come back and maybe add a spring to it or something like that. So suspension is taken into consideration. Ergonomics, foot pegs, you know, the width of the foot peg is huge because it gives you more leverage and the ability to be able to control the bike. Handlebars and height of handlebars. When you're standing up, you know, are you in a comfortable position to where you could stand and still control the bike? So I'm looking at ergonomics. And then we look at navigation tower. All right, does what makes sense? I built, you know, and I've got 5 bikes that I built. Unfortunately, they're all different bikes, but they were all at varying stages throughout their rally career. And so I had to work with what I had. But going forward, the bikes will be kind of cookie cutter. You know, I love the RMS products. You know, Matthew Glade, you know, an RMS. that Sonora tower is probably one of the best towers I've ever worked with. Mind you, back in 2011, Luis and I would have to make a navigation tower out of aluminum and fiberglass. And, for our 450 XCW 6 days bikes that I built for the 2013, for my Colombian riders who finished in 2013,
Mm-hmm.
then Luis's bike, we'd have to build a fairing for the 150 as well, too. So the nav tower is very clean, very simple. It gives you lots of room to apply stuff. But, so navigation, how far out or up does the tower come up? All these little things factor into, each individual rider's bike.
That's very true. We kind of talked about it or brought up earlier about, even just the gear, right? Making sure you're in the right gear. But ergonomic wise, you're going to be riding these bikes for a very long time.
Correct.
And day 1 and 2, no big deal. But what you guys are working on is like day 10 stuff, when you're tired, clapped out, and you're just not, feeling it. But that's all these little things that add up to it.
Yes.
So
yeah.
There's something very specific that I was thinking right now that you mentioned it. You mentioned pegs. So there's a lot of stuff out there as far as pegs go, lowering, raising, and moving, and peg width and stuff like that. What are your thoughts on that kind of stuff? I mean, and a peg, is it really rider preference? Are lower pegs better? Are they better if they're set back a little bit? Or what do you?
It is, again, back to ergonomics and the rider itself. For me, I'm 6'4", and so for me to transition from a seated position to a standing position is very hard on my knees.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm not necessarily concerned with going lower on the peg, although there are some options out there.
Mm-hmm.
But the platform at which I can move my boot around, the width, I want it to be more like a long john instead of just this little nub, sticking out from the frame.
Mm-hmm.
But seat height at that point, there's so many, like you said, there's so many different style of pegs and stuff. So you can lower them down to where it gives you a little bit more toe room to get underneath the shiv lever. So lower them down and back, or you can lower them up and forward for maybe a little shorter foot. You can raise them, obviously, if maybe that helps you stand better off the seat if you got short legs. It is all personal preference, but those are the little details that make a rider better, make a rider more comfortable, make a rider do things that, don't take any thought.
Mm-hmm.
It's already muscle memory,
Yeah.
And setting up the bikes that way. So for the foot pegs and stuff like that, wider, longer.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the rally pegs, for the KTMs, the factory rally pegs off the RFR are phenomenal. Unfortunately, they just don't fit the new frame styles, which may change for 23. We'll see.
Yeah.
But ultimately, there's Black Dog, there's Bulletproof, there's all kinds of manufacturers out there that make some really great pegs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more just, finding the style you like and what's comfortable to you and, what ultimately you plan to do with the bike.
Yeah.
Wide rally pegs won't go well through trees.
Yeah. or maybe not the tree itself, but that stump that you thought you made it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And which is interesting. So that's for something for me. Like I recently, again, I have the 790. I've done all the stuff, I did with Raid Garage, narrowed it up, put basically smaller tanks on it, which made the bike almost 5 inches narrower down at the bottom. I lost a half a gallon of capacity from the top of the tank. So the center of gravity is a little bit lower, but I still have the lowered pegs on it that I got from Raid Garage. And in riding a stock bike, which is interesting, and I think you've seen this a lot, is you go so far down the rabbit hole of modifying a bike that you don't realize that the stock bike does these things better, but you've just taken that away from it, and you don't it's hard to understand the changes if they were actually better. Yeah.
I learned this a long time ago, especially when it came to performance modifications. I had a short road racing career, out of Willow Springs and racing some 24-hour endurance races and racing against people like Chuck Graves and Carlin Dunn and stuff. But any modification you make to a motorcycle, you should only do one modification at a time and go ride it. And again, because you might find that once you say you change your handlebars or to a different height or maybe a different sweep, or you like you say, change your foot pegs and stuff, it may not be comfortable and it may actually make your riding worse than it actually makes better. It may look cool, but it's not functional at that point. So we try and keep it simple, when we're building bikes. We try not to go overboard, like wheel sets. I know that the stock wheel set will not hold up in an off-road desert race. Go out and ride, Dumont or Death Valley or something like that, and you'll.
Hey guys, what's going on? Super quick break in the podcast episode. I hope you guys are enjoying. I just wanted to mention really quick, I've been using the Anchor.fm platform for all of the podcast distribution and everything, and it is very, very simple. So if you guys have been thinking about getting into your own podcast, doing your own thing, talking about your own adventures and what you've got going on your side of the planet, it is very, very simple. All you got to do is go down to your app store, whatever that may be, if it's Android or if it's on Apple, download the Anchor app, or you can also go to anchor.fm, create an account, and get started. It is super, super simple. So anyway, with that being said, back to the episode.
You'll talk to a rim in 10 miles. And so, getting something like Woody's Wheel Works, getting some A60 rims and some billet hubs, heavy duty spokes and stuff is definitely, what I focus on. Strength and reliability is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, which that makes all the sense in the world. I mean, you're gearing up bikes that are going to head off into the great beyond, and even if it's just one less thing to work on, right? If you know that is not a failure point, like a wheel is something that I think that I don't care how strong and you got this dialed setup, it's just eventually you're going to have a wheel issue. But if you didn't build it, you guarantee you have a wheel issue more frequently.
Yes. Yeah. So even though the bikes look like they're stock or they're production, there's a lot of obviously, things that we do to them to make them better.
Yeah. And it seems like you guys are always developing stuff. Especially now going to the new style frame, leaving the ladder frame for the rally bikes and then going to more of the MX style or the wraparound. So I don't know the official name for that, but
yeah, so you've got the trellis style frame, which is essentially based off of the 690 platform. This is when they were trying to, reduce the overall size of the bikes. So back in 2011, the factory riders, had to run, 450, whereas everybody else who wasn't a factory rider, and I think it was like 30 factory riders had to run the 450, and everybody else could run up to like 530 or 690 that year. And then after that year, everybody went to the 450. But just basically it opened the door. And like you said, through development and stuff like that, things changes. But what that did back then was it opened the door for all the manufacturers to come in, and KTM wasn't just the dominating factor. Now, I love KTM, but I love competition, most of them. So, and then just watching KTM through the years, with the trellis frame and then eventually going back to the off-road frame, as a mechanic, I started looking at it going, wow, that made it easier to get to there. And, oh, yeah, look at that. And it's so cool working for a manufacturer that is so ahead of the game and the curve, with regards to, what the next new innovation is going to be. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, I can only imagine. A friend of mine recently just signed up or is now working with KTM as well. And I met a lot of people that have worked with the company as well. But same thing. Very excited about, what the company does. And, I just go back to this 15 years dominance and then that ended with Honda and now we're back. And so I love seeing that, that obviously the company embraces the competition and wants to do better and is constantly testing to make these bikes better. Do you participate in some of the rally testing?
Unfortunately, no. KTM is a rather large company. we've had hopes to, maybe turn Freedom Rally Racing into the B team for KTM, being for up and coming riders, but ultimately that's a goal. And, I think proof is in the pudding. We have to build it. We have to show them, and we have to be all in. And that's what we're working on this year. So for 23, when we open the doors for our fly and ride services, everybody knows what to expect from us.
Yeah. Well, and so, let's go down that rabbit hole, because I think that's very important. And if you guys are looking at doing like a B team, I think that the future here, rally wise, right? More events coming on board, especially like the Kota Rally, where now I guess you guys are going to be up there doing support in a couple of weeks, and how that grows. Would that be something you think, a stateside rally team, if they went that far?
Well, no, for sure. I think there's so many opportunities that we're looking at right now, and it's just getting the base. So, I mean, when you look at it, we want to have a rally team that goes to the rally races. We want to be able to provide, a professional or a kid, who has ambitions to go to the rally or be successful in racing. We want to give them that experience, that opportunity through the team. But we also want to open our doors to, somebody who is maybe wanting to get involved in rally racing or wants to learn about navigation. So we're starting to, put together different classes or working with different people to put together programs to where we can get more people involved and more learning, and then be able to provide a fly and ride service to where these guys who have now gone through maybe a rally school and they want to do their first rally, they can simply rent a bike from us. We've got a full service for them. All they have to do is fly and ride, bring their gear and ride the bike. We take care of everything from that. And that was, more based on what I saw, how we performed at the Dakar. Dakar is obviously, you're at the pinnacle, it's a race. There's no distraction. There's nothing. What I found I had more fun doing here recently, like we were just up at the Yellowstone rally, is we had 40 people there. I think 13 bikes of those 40 were ours. And it was just the camaraderie, everybody talking and sharing stories and having fun, going out and writing road books for the day. And it was an event. It was a destination event, a go-to event where, everybody had a great time riding, learned how to rally, and, didn't kill themselves trying to race.
Nice.
The racing side of things and the non-racing side of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's been the Bivouac experience, and that I've been trying to promote that. It's like even if you're not on a rally bike, and even if you haven't yet done a road book, at least try and get to one of the events and just check out a Bivouac and just see what it's like walking around and the sights and sounds of it. And
oh my gosh, yeah,
it's very different.
Yeah, it's the equipment that you see, the technology that you see, the innovation that you see, the smells, the sights, the sounds. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the Dakar is God. If you could ever make it to the Dakar, I mean, that's a bucket list for I imagine everybody. Mm-hmm. It was a bucket list for me, and I just had no idea, that it would happen in my life. And I was so fortunate to be able to do 7. Yeah. Hopefully, I'll get to do 8, and continue on. But bringing that passion back to the States is what Mike Stanfield and I wanted to do, back in, 2012, 13. Sonora Rally was on the radar. Actually, it was the Cortez Rally. We would go do the first one with Cortez Rally, and then it was the Sonora Rally. Mm-hmm. And then the Baja rallies, were coming up. And now Scotty down there, he's 3 rallies going this year. And it's just, there's interest, there's people, there's a new fascination with a new genre. And so, we want to be at the leading edge of it. So we're doing everything we can to, provide the best quality service.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, obviously, and the experience without say goes to back that up, multiple Dakars, I mean, you work in this every day, troubleshooting and getting bikes set up and dialed in. And then, I mean, we've seen, for those that already follow you, have seen, you're working in the trailer and doing this stuff, getting these bikes set up and getting everything dialed in. I mean, that's what you really need. It's bad enough that you're trying, it's it's funny. People have asked me how to, they want to learn how to ride a motorcycle. I go, well, you should probably learn to ride a quad that has a clutch first before we get on two wheels. Because then that way you're only learning one thing at a time.
Absolutely. I can remember being 4.5 years old out in, where we were, out in Cal City or something like that. And my dad's teaching me how to ride on an SL70. Mm-hmm. And, like I said, I'm 6'4", so I've always been tall for my as a kid. Mm-hmm. And so 4.5 years old, he goes, this is the clutch, this is the gas, this is the shift lever, he's like, you pull this in, you let this out, you turn this, and, you go. And sure enough, man, I did just that. And by the time I was in third gear, I was flying through the bushes and stuff like that, having a blast and just complete disregard for my safety. Came back around, went through a fire pit, launched in the air, crashed, bloodied my nose. And my mom goes, you'll never touch another motorcycle as long as I live. So it was like, so that was the start of my career. By the time I was 12, I was riding a YZ465. By the time I was 15, my dad and I would ride our bikes. I was on a KZ1000 Police Special, a 78. He was on a Goldwing 1200 Aspencade. Mm-hmm. And we would ride from California, from LA, Hollywood to Pittsburgh, Kansas. Nice. I was 15 years old, no motorcycle license. By the way, my dad was a motorcycle cop for LAPD for 18 years of my beginning. Yeah. So it was just I've always been around motorcycles and growing up with them, and so nice. I love giving back to everybody I can, and sharing the knowledge and just the experiences, and trying to make it possible for everybody.
Yeah. Well, and so speaking of that, let's talk a little bit of that. Have you spotted or maybe identified anything that like maybe keeps people back from trying rally?
It would probably be when I say it's the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life.
First of all.
Yeah. I mean, it's not for the weak-minded. Mm-hmm. It's definitely going to push yourself and your limits, your mental capacity as well as your physical capacity. Mm-hmm. And I think after my first Dakar, I came back. I'm like, God, that was incredibly hard. But then it was like, oh my God, I'd never done anything like that. I pushed myself. I found new red lines for me, mm-hmm. If that makes sense. Yeah. And I was pushing myself above and beyond, and I just felt so good. It was something that I wanted to continue to do and strive and be one of the best at. Mm-hmm. Everything I do within the motorcycle realm is a passion for me. It's something I've done all my life. And so I put 100%, 110% into it, blood, sweat, and tears. And so back to your question, it's like, if people understand that it's difficult to do and they understand that's going to be hard, and just don't quit. I keep trying. And I think that's probably it. The long distance riding, the long liaisons, not knowing where you're at any given moment, out when you're off piste and you're hunting a cap heading, or a waypoint through cap heading. It's, like I said, it's fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. That was something that we talked about a couple of episodes with Willem. Is I think a lot of people try, and like, if you look at a road book as a whole, it's very, very confusing and very intimidating. Sure. But if you, like anything else, you just take it a note at a time, and then know that when you get there, it'll make sense, then it's actually more manageable. And the best thing you can do is just understand the difference between, if it's in French or if it's in English, if it's in French, the A's and the G's and the TDS PPs. Like, if you just know the basics, that's almost good enough, because the rest of it is only experience.
Yep. No, it's like anything. You just have to kind of use your mind and know that you're not lost. Understand the 4 points of north, south, east, and west, and obviously the cap heading of 0 to 360 and stuff. If you got the basics, like you said, the rest comes easy. The hard part is when you're trying to use all that while you're riding, and that's where I have the utmost respect for the motorcycles, the moto guys, they're doing this all by themselves where, if you're in a UTV or ATV, and not to take anything away from, not ATV, but UTV and cars, trucks, not to take anything away from their abilities and stuff like that, but they have a navigator. So they're not actually focused on keeping the bike upright or keeping the car upright. They're just focused on driving, where they're being told what to do. But God, the bikes, yeah, that's, and again, remember I said mental. I mean, you're mentally trying not to crash and you're mentally trying to go the right direction, so it's a lot of mental. So you got to be strong mentally.
Yeah. And that's, that's a very good point. Like it's one thing, like desert racers, the guys that do the sprint races, you see how big of there's a physical demand on them, but they know where they're going. There's a marked course, there's a predefined course. So they just need their body to perform, just like the motorcycle, right? It's a physical thing. And the mental side of it is they're processing terrain at a extremely high rate of speed. But when it comes to rally, it's like that combination. It's that take a really tough day at the office and then add in a crazy workout at the same, that's more along the line. So that's where, like you were mentioning, the ergonomics of the bike, the suspension of the bike. I mean, it keeps coming up as a recurring theme. It's like ergonomics are, I think, in a certain way easier to dial in, right? You try a seat, you can sit on a couple bikes, you can tweak the handlebars really easily, but to do the suspension, to take it off, put it back on, do the valving, do the springs, in the case of some of these bikes, right, where you're changing the offset on the triple clamps, changing the triple clamp material and design so it flexes differently, and things that us may never really actually feel and notice the difference between one and the other. That's what makes a big difference at the end of the day.
Definitely. My son jumped on two different bikes, just for example, and one of them was set up for a 260-pound rider, and one of them was set up for 180. And he went out and rode both bikes. He probably did 30K on each bike. And when he came back, he goes, the one with that was set up for 260, he goes, because my son's like 140 pounds soaking wet. He goes, that thing just beat the crap out of me. It just like constantly, I'm just vibrating and, I'm just getting, all this arm pump and stuff from trying to hang on. And then he goes, the other bike, it was like I was driving a Cadillac, kind of like it was just so plush and, it wasn't fighting me and the bike would turn. And so suspension makes a huge difference. The problem is like you said, is finding the right setup. And unfortunately, finding the right setup is very difficult unless you have your own personal suspension tech, because ultimately, for the technician to do the suspension or build the suspension for you, he has to understand how you ride. So technically, the technician should be out there with you, watching you ride, watching his work perform, live. That way he can say, maybe it's blowing through the stroke too fast, or, we need to add more spring, or maybe it's coming rebounding too fast. So we just a couple clicks here. And so he can fine tune at that point. And once you get that dialed in, then the only thing that changes over time is maintenance and fluid, because fluid, eventually the viscosity of it's going to wear out, and, your dampening is going to be different. So it's just basic maintenance. But again, there's a lot of things that people don't understand when they send their forks off to be rebuilt. Is it's a base setting, it's a baseline for, what you're giving, what information you're giving, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and then that's, then it becomes, I've seen it. I know more about off-road suspension on vehicles. I can tell the difference between rebound, compression, that kind of thing, and see, I can look at a vehicle and do that. But it always kind of boggled my mind that there's a lot of suspension tuners out there in the vehicle, even on the vehicle side of it, where they will not leave the office, not leave the shop. They'll say, okay, this should be good, and then send it.
Yes.
But like you said, I mean, I was actually just having a conversation with somebody about the suspension on my 790 and starting to work on it. And I had, from the now defunct Conflict, I had their setup on the bike, right? WP Pro component rear shock with the MX Tech cartridge kit up front. So it's kind of a one-off setup, and we're having this conversation and talking about that. And the first thing is I have to watch you ride. and I have to see it, is because your riding style, everything you just said is exactly what he told me. Mm-hmm. And it makes such a big difference because you don't know how that person rides. I'm most definitely not aggressive in the whoops. I'm the last guy you're going to see charging a section. It's my least favorite. I will spend more time looking for a workaround and lose time than actually just hit them and hope for the best.
Right.
But then again, maybe that's just because I haven't ridden a bike that was actually suited, where I said, okay, you did the suspension, did all that. But
that's okay. I like my wheels on the ground. So give me a fast desert bike over a motocross bike any day.
Yeah. That's my thing. And I mean, and I like, the fire roads and the chop and the little stuff like that, no big deal. But if I'm, I will be the last person to voluntarily take a bike up Zoo Road in San Felipe.
Right.
And if I really, really had to, I would say, well, I'll do this from north heading south because I know that the whoops aren't as sharp. So, right. So that's my, so it's very interesting to me, especially like suspension always kind of hit home because I know more about how it affects a vehicle and how you can drive a car and the results of it, right? The driver works less and he notices that on the steering wheel, almost
right.
immediately. So,
absolutely. When you look at the trophy truck going over those, 3 foot, 4 foot, 5 foot whoop sections, and the truck isn't moving, but the suspension underneath it is moving, the driver isn't getting as beat up. You can see him. He's kind of he's not, God, what I want to say, kind of whiplashing back and forth inside the cab. He's pretty stable. So and you can see the way that the suspension works. Well, it's the same on bikes. It takes a lot more money to get it to do that. But back to, working on suspension, there are manufacturers out there, and I'm not to pimp WP, but we sell obviously the Pro Component rear shock and stuff, but then we also sell drop-in cartridges now, which are closed cartridge drop-ins. Mm-hmm. So if you had an air fork and you wanted to mess with valving now, and, you could drop in a set of closed cartridge, cartridges inside that air fork. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of opportunity out there, and those things are so good. We actually set up our 22 XCF, our 22-500 XCFW with Pro Component suspension, and night and day difference. We've got some fast kids that rode stock and rode this, and they were like just unbelievable. They were comparing it to the cone valve setups on the rally bike, even though they like the cone valve setups on the rally bike better. The RFR. They like the Pro Component stuff. So it's not necessary always to send your stuff out, but there are some other options and stuff like that are probably better. And at that point, it's just springs, figuring out what your weight is and what spring rate to put in it.
Yeah. Now, and that's so I do 2 questions on that one. First, to tackle the springs. Do you feel like most of the time, like these spring charts overestimate and go a little stiffer than needed, or softer?
No, they're usually a little softer in my opinion. Mm-hmm. We've gone 2 rates and we could have gone 3 rates on some of our bikes. I mean, and it's not that we've got heavy set riders. It's that these kids are going so fast that they need more spring so they don't blow through the suspension travel.
Yeah. So fluid and valving only does so much.
Correct. Yeah. And it all works in conjunction with the spring. So you could have too much spring, which overpowers the valving. Mm-hmm. There's so much knowledge. And when it comes to, building a bike, you have so many different components of building that bike. Like I said, you got the ergonomics, you got the suspension, you've got the engine or the reliability. You've got electrical, all right, now you've got all this navigation equipment. Is your charging system going to cope? Can it keep up with the demand? You've got extra lighting because now you're navigating out in the middle of, the dunes at night, 1:00 in the morning, trying to get back to the bivouac. Do you have adequate lighting and what's your charging system going to do at that point? Mm-hmm. Fuel. Do you have enough fuel to get to the next gas station? The requirement for the ASO, for the Dakar, is you have to be able to go 160 miles on a tank of fuel. Mm-hmm. That's the minimum requirement. So that's why the rally bikes have 8 gallons of fuel on them, is so that they, if do get lost out in the middle of nowhere, they can make it there. So when you're building a rally bike, there's so many components to that rally bike you have to take in consideration, and then you have to make it all work together.
Yeah.
So you just can't, like we talked about to your point in the beginning, you can't just throw a bunch of things at it, expect it to work. Ultimately that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of thought and method to my madness, and probably most bike builders, anybody who builds something professionally or works on something professionally. The way I look at this is I've got a life in my hands on a bike that I built, that's huge to me, and if you don't have that mentality, then maybe you just don't care. And I'm not that, I have to care because I want that guy coming home. I want that bike coming home. But most importantly, like you said, I want that guy coming home.
Yeah. Well, and that's very interesting because there's to that point, the aspects of it, right? So one, mechanical, is making sure that the bike is 100% mechanical. So it's easy to ride. So you've done everything you can to prevent a rider riding over their head will always be a liability. I mean, that's just, you can't account for that. But a rider riding normally, making sure that the bike is predictable, that it does exactly what they're asking for, within reason, is huge. That's one point. And then the other one, especially in the Dakar, a mechanical failure. If you have a mechanical failure out in the middle of nowhere, it's going to be a while and you got to be out there. And granted, they have, the communications, they have a lot of stuff in place so you don't spend as much time out there. But that could just as easily transfer over to a practice and training where you're out training on this bike and it has a mechanical and now you're stuck out there for a very long time. So there's a lot of aspects to making sure the bike is obviously dialed in.
Yeah. And so when I set up a bike like that, and we're still in the midst of setting up our bikes, but having tools on the bike, so I try and basically outfit the bike with, in every little crack and crevice. It's crazy. I'll try and, put a toolkit. So, you got the Motion Pro toolkit, that little, looks like kind of a taco, and it's just this little toolkit that you piece together. That's probably one of the best toolkits out there. Mm-hmm. That coupled with a Leatherman or something, a multi-use tool, mm-hmm. Those two tools, will be able to work on just about every aspect of the bike. The other thing is zip ties, and electrical tape and extra fuses, extra bolts, and, just little things that you can essentially MacGyver your bike back together. So if you had little 2-part JB Weld, JB Quick or something like that, and you punched a hole in your case and you had an oil leak, you'd be able to lay the bike on its side and fix it and be able to get out, back to us. Something to remember in the Dakar is the riders have to do all of this by themselves unless they have the support of a T4, T5, the assistance trucks mm-hmm. in the back, unless they're carrying parts for them there. So as a rider, you also have to be mechanically competent and understand, when you hear something that doesn't sound right and you have to baby your bike, so for you're hearing an abnormal motor noise or something and, you've got 100K to go, that's when you start backing off the throttle, you start babying it, you start doing everything you can to make it. Mm-hmm. If you can get back to the bivouac, I can fix your bike and get you back out on stage the next day. Mm-hmm. But if you don't get out of the stage, then obviously your day's over. Yeah. And, so we try, and what I'd like to do is, eventually as we get this rolling and stuff is put together little classes on just little tips and tricks on how to fix bikes, out in the middle of nowhere, giving people ideas, just so that adventure doesn't end for them, mm-hmm. Due to a mechanical. But like I said in the beginning, setting up the bike correctly, and going through it is paramount, yeah. To that.
Yeah, it's the first and foremost, if you get that done, because then that will help. It betters your chances that Leatherman and that Motion Pro toolkit will get the job done.
Right.
Yeah. Because if it's anything more than that, you start running into it. So the other quick question I had for you was particularly about the suspension, a cone valve setup versus the closed cartridge setup. To me, I didn't know necessarily like a closed cartridge setup. I'm thinking, okay, well, if I'm going to get the best from a bike, I just, it's cone valves. Obviously, you just do cone valves. But what's the bigger difference with the cone valve versus the closed cartridge?
It's all fluid dynamics. flow dynamics, how you can dampen, the flow of oil. So cone valves have a lot more adjustability. They're a lot more refined. They're not more well polished. They're obviously a different valving setup. They have some adjustability without having to replace parts. Whereas, when you're dealing with standard conventional, open chamber, closed chamber forks, you've got valving stacks you deal with. So there's some subtle differences there, but more it's just refinements. It's like taking a shock off your Mazda and comparing it against an F1 car might be extreme, but to that point, it's just, why does that work so much better? Well, they're traveling at such higher speeds. They need to be able to control fluid. They need to be able to control heat in the fluid. They need to be able to control air or emulsion, in the fluid. So, all these little things factor, and that's probably the main differences without going into intricate detail between the two.
Yeah. So, so the ability to, I guess for some people, it'll make more sense. You don't need to go as far as going cone valves. You could just go to the next step up and just get that dialed in, work with your suspension guy to make sure, that it's sprung for your weight and at least some kind of baseline.
You know what? In most situations, these bikes are far better than anybody, including myself, can ride. So sometimes it's just a matter of, increasing the rate of the spring for your size. The valving will be perfect for your riding style. So, a lot of people get these brand new bikes and they want to trick them out. They want to outfit them. They want to do all this stuff to them. And like you were saying earlier, sometimes when you do all that stuff, you don't know if you've actually hurt the performance of the motorcycle. So when you get a brand new bike, go out and ride it. Pay attention to the way the suspension is working. Pay attention to when the bike bottoms out. What you have on your back. Are you carrying a big backpack? Do you have a lot of weight? How much extra pounds do you have? And, then with that information, you can go back to your suspension guy. Okay, hey, I'm traveling at 30 miles an hour and I hit this G out and it just bottoms out. You'll be able to give them more specific information to the problems or the conditions you're experiencing for him to be able to help you out when it comes to tuning the suspension for you. Yeah.
And don't give him the DMV weight.
That's right.
It's okay.
No, I'm sorry. This is one of those things where you're going to have to swallow your pride and hop on the scale.
Yeah.
And then throw all your gear on and realize it's another, 30 pounds that you're adding to your body. And now you weigh, 280, like me, I put all my gear on and I'm 250. By the time I get my gear on, I feel like, I'm close to 300, but yeah. It's just, it is what it is. You need your gear, you need your protection, and, so you set up your bike for the way you're going to ride it.
Yeah. Well, and that's very true. I think a lot of people, I have yet to, and this is horrible because I'm learning all these things right now on this episode. I'm thinking like, okay, well, so I basically screwed my 790 up by putting all of these things on it. So now it's like, okay, well, now I need to really go back to basics on that bike. But then the other one, like you're talking about, is that the gear. I've never actually weighed myself in gear. I only estimate, how much it is, but boots are heavy. That backpack is heavy, and it adds up in a hurry. And
absolutely.
So, and it will make a very big difference. So now I'm like, all right, well, time to get on the scale, figure out how much the bike weighs, figure out how much I weigh, get all those numbers that I can to the suspension guy that I'm thinking of using, and then go from there.
It's just to kind of give you an idea. So I had a 2018 1290 Super Adventure R, and I had it outfitted with TourTech bags, metal bags all the way around, top and bottom, top sides. And it was the TourTech, not the TourTech rally. It was the KTM Adventure Rally, and we were in Breckenridge. Well, I got a call. So me and my buddy, he rode his 990 out there. And so we decided, well, we're going to camp out along the way and stuff. So I figured, well, I'm going to load this thing down. I'm going camping, I'm going to be prepared. And I was way too prepared. So I've got all this stuff on the bike. I can feel the bike is heavy. And then as we started traversing some of the backcountry, I realized I was way too heavy. it first started when I was on the highway. When I had so much weight on the bike in the back, the bike started to handle abnormally. And so at higher speeds, 70, 80 miles an hour, the bike would start to wallow and move back and forth. And I knew I had too much weight on the back. I couldn't crank the preload up enough. Mm-hmm. So ideally what I would have needed to do if I was going to ride that way all over, say I was going to do around the world, I would need to increase the spring mm-hmm. on my bike. But then when I got off road and stuff, every time that bike slammed and hit the ground, I cringed. And I thought, you know what? This is just destroying my bike because I'm overweighted. So ultimately, when we got to Breckenridge, I got a phone call that I needed to be up in Spokane, Washington. Mm-hmm. So I look at my buddy, I go, hey, do you want to ride? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. So from Kansas City, Missouri to Breckenridge, Spokane, and then we did Yellowstone, Glacier National Park. We did, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, all over the place. We did 5,300 miles on that trip. Nice. But I had to offload a bunch of my gear before we took off on that trip. We put it into a box. We went to the UPS station and we sent it home because it was like, there's no way we need this stuff. So yeah, pack light, pack, don't overpack, don't overdo it.
That, it's funny. And I was thinking the same thing. I'm going, I would have found the first FedEx or UPS station to get a box and send it back, and I did an episode on it a long time ago about talking about that like you have to be very methodical. So I use a lot of hiking gear or backpacking gear.
Yes.
The tent, the sleeping bag, the sleeping pad, everything is based around that. It's like if I was going to physically carry it on my back. But that was one of the reasons, like, look at every single piece of equipment, just like every tool, like the toolkit that you mentioned earlier. It's like everything has a purpose. You can do 90% of what you want to do with this.
Yes.
Out in the field. And then the other side of it is be realistic. I did that in setting up a toolkit for my 850. I sat down and said, okay, what can I actually do in the middle of nowhere? I don't need the tools to take the motor out of it because I can't take the motor out of it. I'm in the middle of nowhere. So I think that, with camping, I was like, leave the coffee maker at home. You'll be okay. Just before you go, figure out an acceptable replacement for that. And I mean, and that, joking around, but there's a lot of little things like that. Like, do you really need that chair? Or maybe go to the local place that sells camping equipment and find a chair that, this will do, but it fits.
Backpacking and adventure motorcycling they go hand in hand, so, it's the equipment that obviously backpackers use, and they need it light, they need it small, they need it compact, obviously to be able to survive out there. So yeah, use that method, that mentality of, when you're looking for equipment for your adventure bike, go with the backpacking route. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, because I promise when you hit that road and that bike is too heavy, you're not going to enjoy that off road.
Not at all. Not at all. Especially when you get off road and you dump it, and now it's laying on its side, even though the bags are holding it off the ground a little bit for you to get under it. Yeah. Picking up a 500-pound bike after you've been riding all day, no matter how strong you are, it's no fun.
Yeah, I've had that coming down. I went riding with a friend of mine a long time ago. We did the backside road coming off of Mike's Sky Ranch, and there's a lot of turns with ruts in them. And he had never been up there, so he didn't know really how to pack for it. So he packed on the heavier side, and I lost count of how many times he went down, coming down it. And just it wasn't like big falls. It was just tip overs. It was just, the line, the front wheel washed out on him and the bike's on the ground. And
yep.
Like the first time, the second time, I was like, with all the bags on it. And then after that, I was like, okay, we need to take the bags off of it before we even try and move this thing.
Right.
But, then I think like, okay, well, if you would have traveled light, would you have dropped it that many times? And that's
Well, and that's a valid question too, because obviously, when you've got your bike weighted down, it affects your ability to balance the bike. Mm-hmm. And so, it's definitely a
lot of fun.
Yeah. A lot of fun.
Nice. So last question. So what's next for you guys? Are you guys ready for the Kota rally? Is that?
So, yeah, we've got some new changes, a new truck that's going to be presented. We'll be heading up there, I think on the 9th. I'm not sure when Robert's heading up. I'm going to try and be up there on the 9th and 10th. And then I've got to head off to because the Coda Rally is a Mali Moto event, there's not really a lot of support I can do. I can help out before the race and I can help out after the race, but during the race, everybody's on their own. Mm-hmm. So I've got to go up to Tamarack, to the KTM Adventure Rally that week. So I'll be up there, working that event. And that's going to be fun for me. The last event I did, like I said, we were up in Breckenridge. Mm-hmm. We actually had our first inaugural overnight camp out. So Chris Fillmore and I, professional road racer and stuff, we ended up doing lead sweep and taking, I think it was about 12 guys out. And I think in the 2 days that we were out, we did 600 plus miles up in, around Crested Butte, Taylor Park, all up in that area. And then we camped out up in Taylor Park. So we're going to plan on doing an event like that again this year. So I'm really excited for that.
Oh, that's going to be rad. Yeah, that's definitely on the bucket list to get up there.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. They're changing the format up this year, so it's going to be all new. Mm-hmm. And I think instead of one night camp out, we're actually going out for 2 nights. I think so. I think we leave on Thursday or something like that, and come back on Saturday. Nice. So, and then in between that, we're just we'll leave camp, obviously, and just go out and ride the terrain. So, nice. I think I'm going to pick an 890.
There you go. Near and dear. I have the 790. I love that bike. I mean, it's just a little bigger motor. Yeah, maybe eventually. I have been honestly thinking of the idea. I have a 501, but I've been thinking about ditching that to go to a 690 or 701 and build it up. Get the kit, get the rally kit and all that stuff. Something a little bit more formal. But I don't know. I think at that point it might get too close to the 790 as far as bikes go. Or
you just, maybe with the cost of what you're going to do there, tack on another 10, 15 grand and buy a factory rally bike.
If you could, if you could help me make that happen, I would love to. I will take out a second on the house to have that in the garage.
Right. Well, let's just start. Next time you're in the neighborhood, you come out and ride the one we've got here. If you haven't ridden one, I will definitely, turn it over to you.
Yeah. It's the question I always ask people, right? That, it's like the riding differences of it. And I kind of see it with the adventure bike side of it. And I learned it a long time ago. My first dirt bike was a YZ250, but it was their 4-stroke motocross bike that was all ballhut out. And that thing was just so harsh to me. And then I got on my next bike was a KTM, the LC4. It was I think it was the 620.
Okay.
If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, this bike is so much easier to ride, but it's twice the size. Mm-hmm. So that's my comparison to it is like, okay, well, it's a heavier bike, but in the terrain, you don't get bounced around as much. It's more compliant. Obviously that bike wasn't tuned. I just basically threw a pipe and a desert tank on it and that was it. But,
and not to take anything away from any other manufacturer out there. I love motorcycles and I don't care what you ride, 2 wheels, you can be on a Harley. It doesn't matter to me. I love it all. Yeah. I guess my point to the KTMs is like, to your point, yes, they're big and heavy, but the way they design them, the way they design their ergonomics makes them feel light and nimble. So, we were up at the Tour Tech rally in Washington, I think in 2018, and Russell Bobbitt was up there with his wife. Now, Russell Bobbitt, champion off-road racer, extraordinaire. He's there with his wife, and he's on a 1090 Adventure. I'm on a 1290 Super Adventure. Our district sales manager is on a 1290 Super Adventure, and then our events coordinator is on a 1090. And he goes, "Hey, why don't we go out and go ride?" So we're thinking, we're riding with this professional level rider. He's got his wife on the back. How bad could it be? Right? No problem. So we're on some, just some fire roads or whatever, and you're jamming up into the mountains in Washington up by Plain. And all of a sudden he's up front. He's maybe 10 bike legs up front, and he takes a 90 degrees and goes straight up a hill. And we're not talking straight up a hill. We're talking straight up a mountain, zigzagging back and forth between the trees on this Black Diamond mountain bike trail. Naturally, because we don't want to be wimps, we all follow in suit. And next thing you know, we're traversing what I should have been on a 450. I'm now traversing on a 1290. Oh. And this lasted for 26 miles. 26 miles of going down. I mean, we were crossing streams on the sides of mountains. There were points at had we lost the bike, had I fallen over and the bike had gone down the side of the mountain, the only way you would have gotten that bike out is a helicopter and airlifted out. That was it. There's no riding it out. There's nothing. And we've got these are our demo bikes too. So we're there for the Tour Tech Rally to do demos. So we've got all the demo bikes out, and we're just like, having a blast. At one point, I remember to this day the rock, but there was a rock sticking out of the side of the mountain on the rider's right, and on the rider's left, it's straight down, and there's probably 18 inches, if that, of trail width. And I saw the rock sticking out. It's kind of hidden by a fern, and I tipped the bike to the left and then back to the right. Well, the district sales manager, Chuck, he wasn't so fortunate. He did not see the rock hidden behind the fern and caught it with his foot peg and ripped his foot peg off his frame. Oh. So now he had to ride the entire Black Diamond Trail with one peg. So ultimately, we were cussing and screaming and whatever. I mean, by the time we were done, we were like, oh my God, that was absolutely amazing. And I said, and watching Russell Bobbitt with his wife, and this is why we're thinking, he's got his wife on the back. We're not going to do anything crazy. Yeah. But watching his wife ride, she was like a jockey, like riding like a horse jockey, and she's off the seat, and she's just squatting there on the passenger pegs, and she's literally kind of just leaning with him as he's leaning the bike and moving the bike as they're both standing. It's like in unison. And I mean, just absolutely unreal. I swear I'll never, as much and as capable as that 1290 was, I will never do that on a 1290 again. I had a blast doing it, and I challenged myself and I pushed myself, and obviously it wasn't my bike, and it was like, okay, no big deal. But at the same time, the consequences could have been catastrophic, but those are the stories, we all try and live for and find. And, I'm fortunate to have had that. But yeah, going forward, if I had, I would not do that again on my own personal bike.
Yeah, you wouldn't sign up for it. You wouldn't volunteer for it. No,
I'd probably preface the, Bobbitt as going, hey, are you going to do any Black Diamond stuff? But anyway,
it's funny. This is why I have trust issues when we go. Like I've talked about this on previous episodes, but it's very, very true. Know the person you're asking. Is this acceptable? Like
that's a great point.
Because man, I mean, that's I know better. Like if I with my buddy Travis, who's now working with KTM and with you guys, like. I've seen his YouTube videos, so I know what he does on the 790 and what he is capable of. And I look up to him because he's always practicing. He's a very he's very adamant about the skill set and working. Very easygoing guy and everything. But I know better. I know better than to I'll go with you without asking, hey, where are you guys headed? What's the, because I know the stuff that he is capable of. And to him, it's easy. It's just not my skill set.
Right. Yeah. And that's me. I'm getting to the point where, I've always built bikes for people. I love to ride and stuff like that, and there are things that have happened in our lives that had curtailed my riding. Mm-hmm. But working on bikes and building a bike for somebody who's capable of riding a bike I build for them gives me more pleasure in some cases than actually physically going out and riding the bike. Mm-hmm. So as strange as that may sound, but with that said, every time I go out and ride with my friends are all way faster, or they do this for a living, And I find myself riding above my head, and I find myself getting hurt more than I can afford to at this point. So yeah, it's make sure I try and, if I go out and ride, I want to casually ride. I don't want to, it's not a race for me anymore. And maybe, I'm hanging out with the wrong people, but certainly I want to slow down a little bit. But yeah, that's me. I enjoy, building the bikes for people to ride to that potential.
Yeah. And I'm with you. I enjoyed that. That's why the KTM, the 790 has turned into the project that it has, was I enjoy building the bike, but I think I'm with you, is like, I enjoy the casual rides, and my personal challenge and what I do is like, I'm the slowest rider in the group. And when I pull up, everybody's taking a break and I'm not stopping. My like mentality is that I want to push myself distance wise. I want to be able to ride further without taking breaks, without doing this stuff, and just make the bike work for me. And so I can do that and I can accomplish that, because to me, that's a bigger achievement. Anybody can ride fast for 5 minutes. Some guys 10 minutes. Some guys like Colton Udall will do 600 miles at a pace that's unbelievable.
Right.
But that's just them, and that's how they ride and how they got used to it. I see more value and more fun in being able to just go out on a really long ride and be tired at the end of the day, but know that, you accomplished this many miles in a day, which is crazy.
Yes. Yeah.
So I hear you on that one. Sweet. Well, looks like we're going to have to catch up after the Kota rally and see how that went, and then hear some of the adventures from the KTM Adventure Rally.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I'd love to come back if you'll have me. I mean, I've got car stories for days if you want to learn about what to do and what not to do on a 150cc two-stroke that's racing in the Dakar.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I've been like, okay, so this is longer conversation. So that was another bike. I was like, what about, because I see what Travis does on the two strokes, and to me, a two stroke is no engine braking. So which means it forces you to learn how to use your rear brake correctly.
Correct.
And then on top of that, the bike is lighter. So if you're going to be practicing skills and things like that, and you're going to be picking this thing up 200 times in a day, that's the bike you rather pick up.
Absolutely.
Aside from the fact that mechanically you're not worried about, the valves being adjusted, all of these other things that go along with the four stroke. So, but that was what I was thinking. I'm like, what about building like a two stroke with a rally light setup, right? Sonora tower, or maybe even just the handlebar mount setup. But my thing is always the gas mileage. Could you get the gas mileage out of it? So I don't know.
You can't get the gas mileage out of it, unfortunately. I mean, you could put tanks on it and stuff, but then that defeats the power to the weight ratio, of the two stroke. With Luis would have to carry a bottle of oil with him and basically pre-mix it as he was filling his tank at a normal gas station. Gotcha. It was, there was a lot of things that he had to do that were unorthodox, and, in order for us to race that bike. Mm-hmm. But ultimately the 150 hands down was, it's one of the most incredible two strokes I've ever had the pleasure to work on. And how reliable it is, and what we put that thing to and what it's capable of doing. Mm-hmm. So, it's highly impressed. Would we do it again on a 150? No. In 2016, it was either 16 or 17, RC Concepts, French race team, they did it on a 125 Husky. Mm-hmm. Down there. So, it's been done, but the reason Luis wanted to do it, he wanted to be the first Argentinian in his country's history to finish the Dakar on a small two-stroke displacement bike.
Gotcha.
And that's why he chose to do that. Yeah. But yeah, it's, there's stories. Yeah. Building the bike out in the middle of a sand dune, using a silicone bracelet, cancer bracelet, to make a head gasket. These are all real stories.
Oh man. Yeah. There's going to be a part 2 to this.
Perfect. Yeah.
Awesome. Dude, I really appreciate you taking the time to be on here and talk adventure.
No, absolutely. And I'm so happy to have had the opportunity to be on here. It's definitely a passion of mine, and there's a lot of people out there I look forward to meeting, and And a lot of people that know me, and I'll tell you right now, I apologize. I'm not great with names and faces and stuff like that, especially if it's on Facebook, because you just don't see everybody on a daily basis. So it's hard to remember who's who. But certainly, if you ever bump into me, man, just reach out and shake my hand. I'd love to meet you.
Yeah, no. Yeah. So hopefully we get more people into the bivouacs and they can get to know you guys and the team and what you guys are doing and at least check out the rig, because that thing's badass.
And just to support the American Rally Originals, Dave Pearson and Mo Hart and Kyle and all those guys, Paul, and what they're doing and to just kind of be on the coattails of that, or to be with them. I'm proud of them. I mean, that's so amazing, so, I mean, there's so many good things that are happening within the world of rally.
Mm-hmm. It is. And the biggest thing is like how fast it's growing here stateside.
Huge.
Yeah. And it's like, so huge. Now it's like now that we've acknowledged that it's growing, it's like, okay, what's that next thing that needs to happen to where it just blows up and everybody goes, I can do this.
Right. Well, hopefully we'll make that happen.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Hopefully that next thing will come from us, and everybody will be, vying to learn how to rally. So, we send everybody. Jimmy will be Jimmy Lewis. He won't know what to do with himself. He's got so many people lined up.
Right. Exactly. Sweet. All right, sir. Well, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Again, I really appreciate you taking time, and then we'll chat offline and talk some 150 stories and bikes and more.
Gosh, look forward to it.
Awesome. All right, Scott. Thank you, sir.
Victor, you have a wonderful day, bud.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, so that was a wrap. Okay, so Scott Spears, right, from KTM and Freedom Rally Racing, and I know him from the Freedom Rally Racing team. And what those guys are doing in the Kansas City rally team as well. Freedom Rally Racing, Kansas City Racing. See, I even get it confused, but it's two teams. Their mission, right? And if you guys heard the episode a few weeks back where we talked to Robert Mann, who heads that team, is the idea is just get more people involved in the sport and offer a support to those people that you can go to these rally events and you've got your mechanics, you've got your guys. I can tell you right now that going to a rally raid event is easier than going to a Baja racing event where you have to have way more support, way more people involved just to be at the event, not even before the event, but just being at the event. You need pit stops. You need to, if you don't have that, or even then you need to have your crew that's going to be hopscotching down the peninsula or down the route. And then you need to have another paid service like Baja Pits or something like that that's going to be helping you with fuel in remote areas and things like that. So there's a lot more moving pieces personnel wise when it comes to trying to race a Baja event, which then means more hotel rooms, more food, more gas expenses, more vehicles, more things like that. So it's not, the name is there, the experience is there. If it's a bucket list item, absolutely get that off that bucket list, get down there. But at the same time, know that, in a rally raid event, it's very different. It's rally raid event can still be family oriented, but they're not required to do as much work, right? They're at the bivouac, they're there, they can help. If it's a supported rally like that, usually the routes and everything is like, it's all predetermined, even though you don't know where you're going. It's definitely something that's logistically is a lot easier once you're at the event. Now, if you're traveling from around the world, it's a little bit more difficult, but then that's why things like the Kansas City Rally Team, Freedom Rally Racing have the ability to help riders that are traveling abroad or traveling from abroad to these events here stateside. So again, it's very, very awesome to be able to talk to somebody. And again, Scott is the one, like I saw him and I see what he does. He is the one wrenching on the bikes. And from telling, like literally, like this was, something that we talked about with Robert is like, he would tell him, no, the bike's not ready. No, you're not going out on that bike. Why? Because he's putting his name on it and wants to make sure that bike is 100%. And yeah, I mean, the bike is 100%. It's an amazing bike. Everything was done very nicely on it. And like I said, there's a lot of detail work that goes into it. Yeah, Rally Factory replica, but there's still things that you want to check and you want to make sure. And then, each bike is a hand-built piece, and there's a certain art form to making sure that they're 100%. So If you got a bike in the garage and you're looking at that, spend the time with it. I'm thinking, and all of these things that we talked about, I'm like, okay, you know what? I need to go back into the garage. I need to take a look at the 790, and I just need to start from the front to the back or the back to the front and just go over every single thing. Pivot bearings, the chain, the rear tank that's on it, the pegs, all of that stuff. Like I mentioned when I opened up the show, right? Getting rid of this hydraulic clutch thing. I love it. I love the concept of it. But honestly, I didn't get the bang, what I thought I was going to get out of it. Me personally, the next person that, I sell this to or whatever, that might be their jam. They may like that more than the cable thing. I don't know. But at the end of the day, what I do know is that spending the time, investing the time with your bike and making sure that it fits you correctly, that you can enjoy riding it is an actual investment. Buying a motorcycle generally is not an investment. I'll tell you right now. And I hope you guys muted that part. If your significant other is listening and they see, he told that, but no, it's okay. You've got it right. And it's therapy. And I encourage anybody that's never ridden a motorcycle, that has a significant other that rides or a friend that rides, whatever, jump on the back and go for a ride and just see, you'll know what I'm talking about after. But the only thing more than purchasing that motorcycle is dialing it in to what you want to do and setting it up for yourself so you make it just that much more enjoyable. Is the brake lever in the right spot? Are the handlebars in the right spot? My hands don't go numb. I can reach the brake just so, everything there. Is the seat comfortable? The peg height? I mean, all of these things play into can you ride the bike? And then it's one thing on a road bike that you're going to stick to the street, the ergonomics while sitting down and all that stuff. And then it's another bike when you're going to be going off road. You're going to be riding it in a more spirited manner. You may be loading it like, we listened to Scott and what he was talking about, going to the rally and just having this 1290 super loaded down, How are you going to ride it? What are you going to intend it? And suspension guys that have worked on bikes for a long time, especially on the adventure bike side of things, they know. I've worked with guys out of the Beamer shop, and when we were talking about, some of the rear shocks and things like that, and setting a bike up for a customer, how often do you ride with luggage? How much does the luggage weigh? How much do you weigh? Do you ride with a passenger? What percentage of time? So all of these things key into how a bike is going to handle and how a bike is going to work for you. And so, as mentioned, don't give them the DMV weight. Give them the real weights. Give them, realistically sit down and think about, what gear you're going to be taking, what you really need. We talked about that as well as, okay, when it comes to gear, are you shopping at, at the local, superstore like a Walmart or a Target or one of those, places, and just buying, a tent and buying a gear and, this will fit? Or are you purposely going and strategically going and looking for the backpacking type gear where it's very light, very compact, it's designed to be traveled with? Are you looking at that? There's a lot of things to consider, so the more pre-work you do, it makes it easier when you're actually there and out riding. Because the last thing you want to do is 100 miles from home, figure out that you screwed up and this is just too much weight on the bike. Or worst part is doing the entire loop, getting all the way back home and realizing you never opened your left case or your right case or your top case to get anything out of it. Means you carried all of this stuff in there for no reason. So, I don't know. Well, maybe we'll revisit that and do another episode talking about, how to pack for an adventure and that kind of thing. So we'll see how that comes about. But I definitely think it's worth a share. But anyway, in the meantime, guys, don't forget, it'll make sense when you get there. Enjoy the ride. All right, that is a wrap for the Chasing Waypoints podcast this week. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like what you heard. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and a bunch of others. Also, follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook under Chasing Waypoints, Instagram Chasing Waypoints _official, and of course, the YouTube under Chasing Waypoints. Hope everybody has a good week. We will see you guys for the next episode. Remember, shiny side up, and don't forget to tag us. We want to see where you guys are riding and what you guys are up to. Have a great week.